Herr Link, thank you so much for making time here in Milwaukee ahead or in front of the RNC, the Republican National Convention.
Well, this is great to be here, but in Germany we call it Parteitag, we call it a party convention. Here it's more or less election campaign, and that is fascinating to see. It's well organized, but it's a big show.
You are the coordinator of the transatlantic relationship of the German government. Is Germany prepared for a possible Trump presidency?
We prepare for both scenarios. A blue scenario, meaning re-election of Biden, and a red scenario, meaning a comeback of Trump. And both are challenging for us, despite the tone, which is certainly more challenging, and sometimes also the contents in Trump. We know that also a second Democratic administration will be challenging for us in trade, in terms of doing more against China. So many things that we can only do together in the transatlantic spirit.
Is it possible to work with the Trump White House? I mean, we have experienced that before. He was 4 years in the White House. Do you think it is possible to work with Donald Trump as the President of the United States?
He's character-wise certainly a challenge, because he's very, very much a person which is focused on himself and his media appearance, certainly also on his America First approach. So it is a challenge. But on the other side, he's also somebody who can be addressed when it comes to interests. And we should signal to the Americans that if and when they really want to do something against China's rise, and a dangerous rise in all parts of the world, then they cannot do that alone. They also need allies. America First will meet America alone. And therefore we Europeans should very clearly say, let's face these challenges together. Together we are stronger.
One big fear, of course, is that the Trump White House, also now with his pick, with his VP, J.D. Vance, that he would withdraw or at least limit really his help for Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, that's a very serious concern. When J.D. Vance was in Munich, at the Munich Security Conference, for example, he was very outspoken against that. But that's what I mean. We need to make sure, if your concern number one is China, who would win together with Russia if Putin wins in Ukraine? It's China. China is very clearly the supporter of so many problematic countries right now, like Russia, by the way also Iran, and even North Korea, where China sometimes a decade ago was a controlling power. Today they are more or less supporting what is happening there. So yes, China is a challenge, let's face it together, and therefore it's also important, also in the US interest, to really stop Putin in Ukraine.
You know the United States since many, many years. You followed the news. You also followed the development of the GOP, of the Republican Party. Is this a very different party?
Oh yes, very much so. Very much so. It is, if you compare it to the times of, let's say, Reagan, that was before my time, but from what I hear and see and study there, or Bush father, no, this is not anymore the free trade, internationally minded, NATO-minded party. There are isolationist tensions now today, going very, very deep into the party, and that is something which is of concern for us. An isolationist Republican Party cannot be in our interest, and it's also not in the interest of the US.
Last question, there is Project 2025.
Yes, and there are other projects by America First Policy Institute. The Project 2025 is more or less a heritage written program. Trump said, I don't endorse it. Well, he will pick what he likes, and that's his principle. That is why sometimes he's very difficult to predict. He's easy to read in style, but he's very difficult to read in essence, where really he will do something. For example, on tariffs, look at how he charmed China in his first term in the beginning, and when it didn't work, he completely changed the approach. So we will have to be very flexible in our reaction. But what is clear is we need to be united in our reaction. Otherwise, we will certainly not make an impression on him.
What is the biggest threat when it comes to Project 2025?
In this Project 2025, their approach everybody speaks about the security issue. I think the more dangerous, imminent issue is that on trade. The US is our most important trade partner, especially for us Germans. If they would really begin to introduce tariffs, 10%, we hear about 10% tariffs against Europe, against European goods, that would really damage our economy a lot. In addition to that, obviously, also the second challenge is that of how we treat NATO. A dormant NATO, a NATO which will not be reliable, where our most important ally would suddenly not be more reliable, that would be an enormous challenge. But in both cases, we can work against that by European unity, by strengthening the European pillar of NATO, and not letting us play against each other by Trump, who likes bilateral relations, but who doesn't like the EU.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.